Good evening, good evening, good evening. You're locked in to another episode of Transfer Tuesday from the Red Sea podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about outgoings rather than incomings. The incomings have been a little bit stale recently, but we don't want to labour too much on that point. So without further ado, let's flick in and see what guests we've got with us today. Yes, my co-host SS. How are you, pal? You okay?
I'm buzzing, mate. First show on our own YouTube channel now. Obviously, we've been on great shows, great channels, Redman, Daytrippers. So yeah, ready to go all by ourselves. And yeah, what a great place to start with a fantastic guest.
Definitely. So today, without further ado, we have got Gav from the LFC Daytrippers. We're obviously going to be seeing a lot more of Gav next season as we embark on our journey with the LFC Daytrippers doing their match reaction shows. But Gav, how you feeling, mate? You all right?
I'm good. Very, very warm. Listening to people giving out about being too warm. I don't know why. It's beautiful. We pay lots of money to get away into this sort of weather when it's not COVID. But yeah, I'm good. Tired because it's manic before the season starts. It always is. New stuff, new designs, new layouts, new people, including yourselves. And it's just one of those where, I think it's 25 days to the season starting. Something like that, 25 days. And I can't wait for a couple of reasons. One, Liverpool will be back playing competitive football. And two, I know that all the work I've had to do during the summer is over. And we can just get on with watching football and talking rubbish about it, basically.
Totally agree. And with that, Liverpool obviously in action today in their first pre-season game. So it's probably a good place to start, actually, in regards to what we saw today. A few players did impress me. A little bit, and interestingly enough, it was 2 30-minute games. Ox, I think, looked sharp in terms of his movements as well. Naby Keita actually looked bright as well, which is surprising to see. And he played 30 minutes without pulling out of a hamstring. There is good news from the Liverpool camp. So SS, I mean, let's take the first game, and we saw probably the player which I like a little bit, and you hate the most, which is Loris Karius return in a Liverpool shirt. I mean, what was your thoughts on Karius' performance today in the Liverpool shirt? Obviously, he didn't have much to do, but what do you think?
Yeah, good. It was the banter moment, wasn't it, when we saw the team sheet? I sent you a little screenshot of him in the goal. But just before I get on, Avi, thanks for tuning in. Obviously, part of Daytrippers as well. So congrats on the YouTube channel, lads. Thank you very much, Avi. And yeah, Skipper's on tonight, so I had to start in the best way possible. So thanks for that, Avi. Really appreciate that. But yeah, I managed to catch the first one live. I watched the second one a bit later on, but I think he made a pretty routine save early on. And then to be fair to him, the goal that Innsbruck scored, if that's how you say it, we were just wide open at the back. I think there was the right back was it in terms of the back four. The defence had disappeared. We were caught on the counter, and obviously, it came across to the right-hand side of the area, and they kind of headed it back across goal. So Phil Thompson was on commentary, who I have to actually say was really good. I've not really heard him commentate only on Gillette Soccer Saturday and, do the big reactions. But to actually commentate as a co-commentator, I actually really enjoyed it. But yeah, Karius, he said that the goalie could have done better. That was his words. I think it was a good finish with a header. I don't think Karius did a lot wrong, but you've got to go some to do something wrong and make mistakes in half an hour against an Austrian side, haven't you? So hopefully that's all we see of him.
No, look, it's good to see him back in the Liverpool shirt and getting an opportunity to show what he can do in pre-season. Do I think it's going to last? Probably not. His time at the club is drawing to a close. The challenge is at the moment it would seem that there are no suitors and nobody is willing to take a gamble in terms of bringing him in on a permanent deal or even a loan deal. I mean, Gav, do you feel he has a future at the club, or do you feel his time is spent with Liverpool?
Oh, it's up. There's no doubt about it. People will say, "Oh, well, he's in the camp." Awoniyi and Grujic were in the camp, weren't they? And then they were taken out of the camp fairly quickly, and we get on to them in a bit. But no, look, his time is up at the club. His time is up as soon as that happened in the Champions League final, and I feel sorry for him over that. Regardless of how bad the mistakes were, it's still a human being making them mistakes, and I'm part of you while you're disgusted at him. And I remember that night being just beside myself with anger at him. in the aftermath of it all, you have to kind of feel sorry for him because he has to live with that. It's the biggest game of his career. It will be the biggest game of his career. I don't think he'll get close to a Champions League final again, unless he gets a move and just plays out of his skin. But no, his time is up. Like you look at. Alisson's not there because of international duty. Keller has signed a new long-term deal. Adrian's being committed to the club for another year or whatever it is, and he's fourth choice. Even if you can call it fourth choice, he's just there making up the numbers. I think Adrian plays the second game, doesn't he? And I think you might see Kelleher, if he's fit, will probably actually play on Friday. Next Thursday. Sorry, what? It is Friday.
It's Friday.
I'm all over the place with the games. I'm all over the place. But yeah, for me, his time is up, and I think he's a year left on his deal, if I remember right.
Yeah.
I think he signs in 2017, isn't it? So I think he's a year left in his deal, and I think it'll be a case of a loan or an obligation to buy at the end of it, or he's only a year left, a loan, and then it'll be just a case of the loan. If it doesn't happen, he's gone. If he gets a move to Southampton, and Southampton loan for a year at the end of the season, he's either going to stay with Southampton or be a free agent. He won't be back at Liverpool, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a shame for a goalkeeper that when he came to us showed quite a lot of promise. Was young goalkeeper of the year in the Bundesliga in the year that he moved to Liverpool. Came in and kind of cemented that number one spot after that little tussle with Simon Mignolet, and in the run up to the Champions League final was actually quite good in the Champions League in terms of his performances. But that sort of dreadful night does play over, and I think the Liverpool fans haven't forgiven or forgotten about that night. And it's a shame, really, because like you said, at the end of it, there is a human being. And, he deserves an opportunity, not necessarily with Liverpool, but with another club to actually go out and play some football and resurrect his career. I, for one, don't mind him so much. I feel based on what we have available in the club at the moment, he's ahead of, Adrian in terms of his ability. I get nervous watching Adrian between the sticks. Even today, watching him, I was nervous. And Kelleher, I think he's a young keeper and deserves an opportunity to go out and cement that second second backup goalkeeper role. So I would probably say Karius would be a better third choice than Adrian, but Adrian would clearly have no resale value, whereas with Karius, there may be some resale value there. So probably in line with the club's thinking. But just to kind of give SS the final say on it, if for example a bid was to come in, you would accept it straight away. And realistically, how much would we expect to get for Loris Karius in the market at the moment?
50p in a packet of crisps. I'd take that right now. No, but all honesty, I think if you've got a year left on his deal, I mean, he went to Besiktas, didn't he, on a 2-year loan, and they didn't even want to keep him for that. They got rid of him after a year or a year and a half, didn't they? So I think if you're getting anywhere near $1 million, you're doing well.
Okay. Gav, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think $1 million is about a fair price. I think the rumour last summer was we take somewhere around 2 million. I think £1 million. I think any nominal fee. You've made the point about him being a better third choice. I don't know. I think when he makes them mistakes and then you see him at Tranmere in a pre-season game, and you're hoping that it's he's had the summer off, he gets over it, and he can move on. He just has a nightmare. He could be good for somebody. He just can't be good for Liverpool. I think it's in his head now, and it happens to so many players. Not on that scale where the Champions League final defines them. But you've seen players, loads of them, come into Liverpool, and it's just too big for them. It's too big for them. And once they hit a slump or once they hit a bad patch, they just can't turn it around because the expectation and the standards are so high that they can't get there. I think he has the added baggage of what happened in Kiev, and I think if Liverpool, if someone said to Liverpool, listen, we'll take him on loan for a year and we'll pay half his wages, I think Liverpool will do that. Yeah,
I agree. And not necessarily so much for the club. I think it's more for him as well. And like you said, the mental side of this game as well, because the lad needs to play and needs to kind of exercise some demons, I think, in the process. So let's jog it on slightly. We had some great news, and some may say great news, some may say otherwise. Marko Gurich has finally left the club. I think, again, that's been a long, protracted affair of multiple loan deals. The player did have a desire in order to commit to Liverpool and show his worth, but unfortunately hasn't really been given the opportunity. Gav, I'll come to you. Do you think it's been fair treatment of Marko Gurich and his time at Liverpool, and is he kind of fallen foul of the development and the progress under Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool recently?
It's a tough one because I think Liverpool had eyed up Marko Grujic before Klopp ever came into the club. I think he's Klopp's fourth signing, isn't he, in the December? And he joins. I think he's signed in the December and doesn't come into the summer. I think I could be wrong there, but I think he's definitely Klopp's fourth signing. But I don't know if he's a Klopp signing, if you know what I mean. The treatment of him, I don't think he's ever suited us. I think he's big. I think he's strong. I think he's aggressive, but I don't know what he is after that. And when you look at the players in front of him where he wants to play, if he wants to play in a two in the midfield, you have got Henderson, you have Fabinho, you now have Thiago, you have got Wijnaldum that could play in that. If you were playing with one man at the base of midfield, Fabinho's playing there all day. Henderson's definitely playing after him. And so you're looking at him being third choice, fourth choice, just for that position. And then when you look at the amount of the midfielders we have, and Ox and Katie, you can have arguments over because of the reliability, but you see Curtis Jones coming in and he just offers that something different. Curtis Jones looks like he offers, for me, more work rate than Marko Grujic. He's not as physical, he's not as physically dominating, but he offers more work rate. I think even James Milner offers more organisation, more leadership. And it's just with Marko Grujic, and it's probably unfair to say because you haven't seen a lot of him, but he's gone away on loan and he's been, I think, he's been at Porto, he's been at Hertha. Was it Hertha he was at?
2 years.
And he's been at a couple of clubs, and it's never come back where, listen, this lad is actually tearing it up. He's standout every week. He's playing as a single, a six, or he's playing in a two, or he's playing as an 8. There's nothing come back to say, lads, what a move for him as a loan, because he's absolutely flying. I don't think he's a bad player. 10 million with a 10% or £10 million, I think, with a 10% add-on tells you that Liverpool do rate him. But I just think the way we are as a squad and the dynamic of our midfield, I just don't know where he sits in that. If you told me Marko Grujic was a destroyer, he was just a destroyer and looked to, and he could pick a pass, you could probably make an argument for him being second man to Fabinho, but I just don't know what he is. And that's probably my ignorance a bit, because I don't go watch a lot of Hertha or watch a lot of Porto. What I've seen him in Liverpool, neat and tidy, can get up and down the pitch, he's aggressive, but if he was in the squad tomorrow and I was asked to pick any midfield three, he wouldn't be anywhere near it. And that's just the way it is. It's just one of those things. You don't have to side with, we should have kept him, or side with the fact that we should go. You don't have to be that staunch in it. You can just look at it and go, it's just one of those things. And hopefully Marko Grujic goes to Porto. He signed a 5-year deal, I think. And you never know. In 2 years' time, he could be getting a move to Porto, or a huge club, but he could get a move to a bigger league. And cement him. I think he needs to cement himself somewhere and just absolutely lay roots somewhere, because even though he's a Liverpool player since 2017, you didn't really consider him a Liverpool player, did you? You just waited for him to come back in pre-season, and he scores a header against Barca, and he comes back and does a bit of pre-season. He might play the odd League Cup, and then before you know it, he's out the door before the window closes and stuff. So for Marko Grujic, a bit like Loris Karius, a move from Liverpool is probably the best thing for him. And at the end of the day, we want what's best for Liverpool, but you also have to look at what's best for the player. The best, I think, for the player is to find not only a club that he can call home, but nearly a position and a way of playing and a style of playing that he can make a name for himself. Because 5 years at Porto, or even 3 of those 5, where he's playing as a number 8, you can say Marko Grujic is a number 8. Let's look at him statistically against A, B, and C, and he stands up quite well. Now you can look and give a good career path for him. I think that was being held back at Liverpool because we just didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And SS, I'll come to you on this as well with Marko Grujic. I think personally he's been a victim of circumstance. Certainly when he came in, he was Jurgen Klopp's first signing. Admittedly, I think the club were after him, and we were in talks way before Klopp came in at the tail end of the Rodgers era, and he just happened to sign under Klopp. Personally, his loan spell in Germany was quite fruitful, actually, to be fair. He was quite a standout performer in that team, and quite a successful Hertha midfield. They did all right with him in the team that season. I think at the point where Marko Gurich signs, you look at what's available, at that point we would have had Joe Allen and Lucas Leiva. Had Joe Allen and Lucas Leiva still been at the club, you probably think, you know what, I think Marco Gurich deserves an opportunity. The challenge is that we've evolved past that. You know, we've signed and since left the likes of Gini Wijnaldum. You know, Henderson's evolved as a player under Jurgen Klopp. Fabinho's come in as well. Ox has come into the mix as well. Keita's come into the mix. And for all the issues amongst Keita and Ox, their availability is their biggest issue. It's never ever a conversation of skill when you're talking about those two. So you can only really compare directly, and skills based and technique and ability wise, Marco Grujic isn't a patch on any of those two. So yeah, for me, he's a victim of circumstance. I mean, SS, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we had a little chat about it earlier, didn't we? Like you say, he came in the 16-17 season. So, like you say, Klopp's first signing. He did actually stick around with the club for that year. He only played 5 games in the league. As Gav said, you know, he pops up in the League Cup, etc. But yeah, you know, he didn't really. He's one of them players where when you come into a team like Liverpool that are in such a mess that they were when Klopp first came in, if you get the opportunity to sign someone of Guric's level in your first week in charge, for £5 million, you say yes, because it's in, you know, we're getting Stephen Corker on loan to put as a striker. That's the kind of level that we were at the time. So once you get, it's a bit like a Ben Davies one, you know, it's emergency. We need it. You know, we might get better as we go, but for now, that's a good place to be, whether that's a squad player or not. You know, a no risk transfer as you've called it, James, in the past. But
yeah,
you know, we loaned him out because obviously we managed to get better players in the next window in that position. Pretty underwhelming loan at Cardiff in the Championship. Only played about a dozen games, and then as you mentioned, went to Hertha Berlin and did actually do quite well. They were in the Bundesliga at that point, so he was in the top league, and then had a fairly decent spell at Porto last year. But again, as Gav mentioned, you know, when you're hopping about from club to club, it's not healthy. You know, we've seen Harry Wilson do something very similar. You know, he's been at Hull, at Derby, at Cardiff, at Bournemouth, and you never really find that home, as Gav was saying. So it's very difficult because, you know, the first 6 months of your loan spell, you're settling in. You probably don't know 90% of that squad. You know, you might know the odd person, fellow countryman, etc. But you know, just as you get going in that team, your loan spell ends, and you're back to Liverpool. And you know, football it moves quickly. You know, if you've been away on loan for 2 years, for 3 years, the club that you come back to, your parent club, it could look very, very different than when you left. So apart from 6 weeks of pre-season, you know, the manager might have changed, you know, half the squad might have disappeared, and they might have signed 2 or 3 more players in your position. So it's a tricky one because you need to shine enough on your loan spell to get signed up permanently, and the team that you're on loan to needs to have the funds to make that permanent. And you know, you look at Hertha Berlin, you look at Porto, you know, Cardiff, they're not known for spending millions and millions of pounds, really. You know, Cardiff, sometimes when they get to the Premier League, they've spent some money, but certainly not as a Championship side. You know, not going to be paying the kind of money that we're looking at. So yeah, I agree. Victim of his own kind of circumstance. Yes, I think he probably deserved 1 season back at Liverpool. Maybe after his first year at Hertha, he could have been given a chance. But once you're loaned out again, and again, it's, as Gav said, you're counting down your contract, and realistically, I think he was expiring next summer. So as he said with Karius, if you loan him out for a year, he leaves on a free. So let's get £10 million for him. We've doubled our money. We've made some good money in the loan fees as well. I think we made about $750,000 loaning him back to Red Star for the first season. So you know, he's probably more than paid what he cost us. So yeah, I wish him all the best. I was actually at that game at Wembley when he did put that header past Barcelona. I took my son, who was a fan of Barca at the time, and you know, was absolutely convinced Barcelona were going to tear us a new one. And 4-0 later, I was a very happy man. So yeah, he's definitely had moments, mainly in international cup friendlies and League Cup games. But yeah, I think as you mentioned, James, it's time for him to move on, time to find somewhere. And having already been at Porto for a year, I think we'll see him possibly do quite well there next year. And just to finish on him, there was a point that Luis Alberto, the old Liverpool flop that moved to Lazio, had like a 30% sell-on clause, and you know, he's kind of reinvented himself at Lazio. And I think Paul at Redmen was mentioning if he was, you know, moved on for, you know, whatever money, that we get a sizable chunk of that. So Yeah, as Gav said, it's good business, including a 10% deal. If he does really have a good season at Porto, he might get a move to Spain, to Italy, back to Germany, to one of the bigger clubs. Then makes financial sense. So yeah, all the best to him, really.
Can I just say sorry? You have to be exceptional on loan now.
Yeah.
To get near a squad in the Premier League, it's one of those things where if you try to think about players that, unless they're absolute stars, that are just being literally given out, get him some game time because he's that good. I think Harvey Elliott's going down that road. Going back years and years, David Beckham was sent out on loan, I think, to Preston North End. You're seeing Jermaine Defoe go on loan to different clubs, and they knew he was a goal scorer. They just knew it, the sort of way. But you have to be exceptional now, and I think, when you look at the likes of Grujic and Harry Wilson that we'll probably discuss, they haven't been exceptional. They haven't. You would expect, if Harry Wilson wants to get into Liverpool's first team squad, you would expect him to go to a top end championship club and dominate that league. Literally be the standout player in that league for everything, passing, assists, goals, dead ball, whatever it might be. But he hasn't, sort of way. He just hasn't. So you have to be exceptional. And that's why I always say, when you see a player go out once on loan, fine, but twice on loan, you start going, that's probably just them giving them a second chance to try blitz something. And if it doesn't happen, you won't see them again. And that's what's happening with player after player, not only at Liverpool, at loads and loads of clubs. Unless they're absolutely exceptional and they, blow the thing apart, you won't. They very rarely make it.
Yeah, and you made some great points in there, Gav. I mean, just on the Gurich thing, the Hertha Berlin loan was probably his most successful in terms of what he'd done. Obviously, from August 2018, he was at Hertha, and the loan deal obviously expired in July 2019. In terms of that, and we actually netted a 2 million loan fee from that as well. The coach at Hertha was quite complimentary and made quite a big statement, saying he's the best midfielder Hertha have had in 20 years. So that seemed to be where he flourished, and like you said, since then he struggled to find his feet. I was saying to SS earlier on, and we had a bit of a chat on the phone about Marko Grujic really, really briefly. And is it a move? And there's always the risk with players that move on almost a bit too soon because they don't quite fit into what the style of play that team currently has, or what managers there at that current point. Chelsea seem to be the ones that have fell foul of this on many, many occasions. We look at Mo Salah, we look at Kevin De Bruyne as prime examples of players that have left clubs way before they've matured. Is there any danger of Marko Grujic being one of these? Is there any danger of that? Just briefly, Gav.
There's always a danger. Liverpool have probably looked at it and said, look, there's enough evidence there to show that he's been on loan in England, and he's been on loan in Portugal, and he's been on loan in Germany. And what we've seen is probably what we expected from Marko Grujic when he arrived at Liverpool. But you want to see him kick on. You want to see him dominate. You want to see him always progress. You don't want to see him go out and just be Marko Grujic and go, oh yeah, he's just Marko Grujic, bring him back. They want to see more. They want to see Marko Grujic being the next level of Marko Grujic, And the Chelsea thing, in fairness, they bought Mo Salah, and he was in the first team squad and going. Kevin De Bruyne the same. That was just a case of Chelsea making decent signings and not having any patience with them, not having any patience whatsoever, and just doing it with them. I think Salah's there under Mourinho, isn't he? And
yes.
De Bruyne, I'm not too sure. He could have been there under Mourinho as well.
Jose as well.
Yeah, so there you go. There's a common denominator in both of them.
That might be another one as well.
Yeah, they've no patience for anything. So it could be a case of Marko Grujic could go away and storm things at Porto and get a move to Spain or Germany and a bigger club than Hertha, and that's fine. We get 10%, but that's the risk you take. But I would say Liverpool have looked at him and went, listen, he's just Marko Grujic that we've also always known. When they send it on loan, they're looking for you to be something different. They're looking for you to take control and move on and progress. They want you to come back and be, a better player, a more rounded player, a more, and person probably. And probably it just hasn't been like that with Marko Grujic, so they're willing to take that risk.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. For me, I'm not necessarily worried. Like you said, I think that Liverpool have made a calculative decision in regards to this. So I just want to go switch to a couple of comments. Big up Mr. Jones in the comments. Thank you for obviously coming on, and make sure you like and subscribe as well whilst you're at it. makes an interesting comment after this one here, though. Spanish papers are saying that pronounce the name. Jovic is
not quite
could leave Real Madrid in the summer. His agent, I won't even bother trying to pronounce that.
Ramadani.
Go on, Gav.
Go on. It's a tongue twister. Is shopping around in LFC and monitoring developments as they are heavily linked with the Serbian in recent past. Yeah, I do remember that link after he had that kind of spell with Frankfurt in the Champions League. He played some really, really sensational football. But since he went to Real Madrid, it's just died out, isn't it? You think he's locked in the basement and he's never going to get out. And again, Mr. Jones makes a really, really makes a really, really good comment here as well that he rates Marco Gurich, but he won't give enough game time for us and deserves to have a move. And also, he said, Gav, well done. And that's clearly for your pronunciation.
I was impressed.
I'm learning from Grizz. Grizz is great at and Avi is like
Avi's the best.
Avi is so a stickler for everything, but especially like when we want to annoy him, we call that guy off PSV, Daniel Malin. We just keep calling him Malin. He goes absolutely insane.
Malin.
It's meant to be Malin. Yeah.
Yeah, tomato. Avi.
Yeah, I'm learning because
it's all the same, mate.
Yeah, I'm an idiot when it comes to names, so I'm just trying to learn off the lads. Basically, learning how to read with Avi and Grizz. It's a sensation.
Oh, good. Shout out to Avi as well, who was in the comments earlier on as well. Thank you for contributing, sir. Keep it locked in. Keep it Red Sea Pod, obviously. Obviously, this one's going out to Twitter and on YouTube. So if you're on the Twitter, please head over and give us a subscribe and like the video while you're at it. So just jogging it on slightly, Harry Wilson. The curious case of Harry Wilson, a player which probably had quite a speculative future at Liverpool. There was high hopes from at one point in terms of some of the performances which we saw him producing in the Championship. Arguably when he was on loan at Derby under a certain Frank Lampard and playing along a Mason Mount. And you thought of the two players at that point, maybe Harry Wilson would be the one that was going to kick on and actually start to dominate in the Championship and get his move back to Liverpool and kick on in the Premier League. It just hasn't happened for him. And once again, we're talking about, is this going to be the season where Harry Wilson actually gets a move? SS, are you sick to death of seeing Harry Wilson turn up in a pre-season game, do a little sparkle,
bang a free kick in the top bin,
put a free kick in the top bin, and 2 weeks later, he's
off
out on his arse to a Championship club? What are we going to do with this player? What are we actually going to do?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, mate. I think, so far in his Liverpool career, he's played one FA Cup game and one League Cup game. So it says how much looking he's got. But he had a loan move to Hull, I think that might have been in the January, and got 7 in 14, which is phenomenal. Went to Derby, got 18 goals in 49 appearances, which again was probably his most fruitful. And, like Gav said, you need to go and absolutely smash it and say, hello, take notice of me. I'm not just Harry Wilson from the reserves. I'm Harry Wilson 2.0. I'm ready to kick on to that next level. But, it's the same thing, I think, with Harvey Elliott. I think Harry Wilson reminds me of a Harvey Elliott 4 or 5 years on that didn't really fulfill that massive potential that potentially he had. I think we looked at an 18-year-old Wilson. He did stick around, I thought personally, in the kind of under 23 team as a captain for a bit too long. There were players younger than him going out, getting first team experience in the Championship or the bottom half of the Premier League. But he stuck around, he captained the under 23s, and he got to kind of 20 years old. And we were like, well, we either promote him to the first team or we sell him, or it's getting to that point where he needs to go and absolutely dominate alone to prove he's worth it. So, he loaned out to Bournemouth in the Premier League to kind of say, okay, let's test him at the Prem level. If he can do what he did in the Championship here, we can absolutely make him a member of that squad and maybe make him part of that backup brigade that, that come on, Mane, Salah after that, etc. But, slightly underwhelming, 7 goals in 35 games at Bournemouth. And then the loan spell to Cardiff in the Championship, which was a big step backwards for me, completely finished him off at the top level. We've seen him go to the Euros. We've seen him come off the bench for Wales. Wales, I know they got to the knockout round, but they're not a great side. If you're struggling to get in the Wales team, you're not really going to be pulling up any trees. So again, he's 24. He has no future with the club, and I really like Harry Wilson. Obviously don't know him personally, but I like the way he plays. I like the way he presents himself. He's always been respectful and professional. I agree. Again, like Marco Gurich, he needs to go out and find a club that he doesn't have to bounce around every 12 months, start again, find something new, settle in, try and get in the team, because, just because you loan someone doesn't mean you're guaranteed to start. So I think, again, if we could get £10 million for Harry Wilson, I think that's great business. We've already made 17 million today. There's 3 or 4 others that we'll talk about later on that could contribute to get that up to 50, 60 mil. You're onto a marquee player right there, and all you've really done is sell players that have 0 appearances in the Premier League for Liverpool. So you're not really losing anything. So I agree. We might see a bit of him in pre-season. I don't think did he feature today? I don't think he did he? In the half an hour games? No. So
no, he only arrived with the squad yesterday.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So he might feature maybe against Mainz. And is it Hertha Berlin we've got next week, isn't it? So you might see him in one of those. That might put him in the shop window potentially, but I think a championship move is the most likely for a loan again, or if we can try and move him on to a Brentford, someone like that who would take a chance on him, a newly promoted team. If we can get 10 million, then I'd wish him well.
It's funny you say this, SS, because in the season when he came back after Derby, there was a lot of suitors. Quickly, Dave, how you doing, pal? You okay? Thank you for jumping in on the Twitter, mate. Make sure you head over
the other week as well.
Yeah, make sure you head over to the YouTube, Dave, and like and subscribe, my man. I'm sure you will. So it's a funny one because after the Derby loan, there was a few suitors, and I really, really feel that at that point Liverpool should have cashed in because that's when his stock was the highest. I know Leeds were very interested in him at that point as well, and a deal just couldn't be struck, and Derby even potentially looked at keeping him on the books as well. And again, the money just wasn't right because Derby were going through a really, really sticky patch. Obviously selling naming rights to the stadium and buying it back on the cheap, but we won't talk about that. It's just not really worked for him. And it's interesting you make comparisons between Harvey Elliott and Harry Wilson. I think the club are keen not to repeat previous mistakes. Hence why Harvey Elliott is back with us. And, from everything we're hearing from the club, the intention is he's going to stay with us and be around the first team and actually be nurtured and grow around the players such as Mane, Salah, Firmino. There's an interesting one that's come out recently in the press as well that Harvey Elliott was about to grab a bit of toast and Mo Salah asked him how much bread he's had today. And he said, well, that's my second slice. And Mo took it off him and said, here's some fruit. So... obviously there's players already in the first team kind of taking him under their wing and showing him the ropes about how to look after your body and how to be a model pro. And if we're talking about model pros, there's no one better than maybe a James Milner for you to be around for the next season. But we'll get on to Milner a little bit later. I mean, Gav, what's your sort of thoughts on how Liverpool intend to proceed with Harry Wilson? And is a certain emergence of a Harvey Elliott the reason why Harry Wilson doesn't have a real future at Liverpool at this present?
I think Liverpool have messed up on Harry Wilson a few times, to be honest. Excuse me. I think he signs a long-term deal. I think I might be after that Derby loan. After that Derby loan, they announced him on a long-term deal, a new long-term deal. And I think it was a case of he done really well at Derby. And you mentioned Mason Mount earlier about, you maybe thought him out of both of those, Harry Wilson will be the one to go on a bit further. And you've mentioned earlier about a victim of circumstance. Mason Mount is he's not a victim of circumstance. He comes out the right side because Chelsea, of course, ended with a transfer ban and he's done well at Derby and he comes back, he ends up getting 14 football. Harry Wilson comes back to Liverpool and they're chasing Champions League and league titles, and it's hard to break into Liverpool's side regardless. But when they're chasing that sort of prize with the quality that he had and the settled side he had and the settled way that we played, it was difficult for him. I think he'd be a Bournemouth player right now if Bournemouth had stayed up in the Premier League. I think it was there. I think it was an obligation of around 23 million. or somewhere around there for Bournemouth to buy him. They went down, so that obligation disappeared. And as SS says, he goes off to Cardiff, and it was a very curious one for me because you've done Derby, right? You've done Bournemouth. What are you doing going to Cardiff? You know, you're basically saying, I've done Derby in the Championship, then I've gone to Bournemouth, and instead of look for another Premier League move or insisting on one, I'll go back and do the Championship again. Fulham look like the most relevant or the most, you know, relevant club in this conversation at the moment, and Fulham will be looking to be at the top end, you know, of the league they're in. So, look, the way it is, Harry Wilson, I think you said he's 24. I was surprised when you said that, to be honest.
Yeah.
But he has got, I think he might have 2-3 years left on his deal. And I think Liverpool, I'd say they were relying on Bournemouth staying up, and this wouldn't be an issue. And then, of course, they weren't getting the money they were looking. Now, they were a bit silly, I think, last summer because they were still looking around 20 million for him. You know, you can't tell Bournemouth you can have him for 23. The deal falls through. He's been relegated with a side, and then say, well, we still want 20. You know, based on 7 goals in 35 games. I think that's where they struggled, Liverpool, and I think this year they might have to just take their medicine a little bit on Harry Wilson because he's very good dead ball. You know, he's a really good free kick taker. We've seen him do it at Old Trafford, you know, with a dead ball. But he's not a player that, for me, that suits us. You know, where do you put Harry Wilson? What attributes does Harry Wilson have that you would say, you know what, if this player was out of the side, Harry Wilson would step in for you? I can't see it. I can't, even to a level of a Shaqiri, I can't see it. I don't think he's as intricate as Shaqiri. I don't think he has the vision of a Shaqiri. And that's two of Shaqiri's big assets. You know, he is diminutive. He's a low centre of gravity. He has an eye for a pass. He has a brilliant left foot on him, the same as Harry Wilson, but Shaqiri has more. With regards to Harvey Elliott, I think you make a very good point. I think they've learned from Harry Wilson when it comes to Harvey Elliott, because me and Avi had a discussion about this the other day, and Avi was insistent that he goes out on a loan to a Premier League side, and I'm insisting that he doesn't. What I'm saying is, I look at not only what's happened with Harry Wilson, but I look at the likes of Caoimhín Kelleher, and I look at Caoimhín Kelleher. Sorry, I always say his name wrong, even though I'm from Ireland. But with Caoimhín Kelleher and in particular, and Curtis Jones, both not loaned out, both were kept with the squad, and they might get 10 appearances, which could total like 60 minutes over the season. But they're spending a year around the quality that they have to be and the standards that they have to be. And that's where I think it's huge for Harvey Elliott. I think he's all the talent in the world. I think he has the touch. People go on about his pace, fine. But I think he has the touch. I think he can get away from people. I think he has got the vision. He definitely has the left foot on him. He can finish. There's loads about him at 17, 18 years of age. And I think when you look at Harvey Elliott, instead of saying he was great there, let's send him out again, i.e. like done with Harry Wilson to see if he could prove himself, I think they look at Harvey Elliott now and go, no, we're not. We're going to keep him here. And even if he gets 10 appearances all season, he's training every day with Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, Roberto Firmino, Diogo Jota, Thiago, you know, and he can take from all these players because the sort of player he is, he's looking to do stuff from a midfield area and affect a forward area. So he's learning how to play like people and service people at the same time. And I think that's where Harvey Elliott will he will be he will profit from what's happened with Harry Wilson in a roundabout way. And I think he's a brilliant future, Harvey Elliott. I really do.
Do you know what, Gav? I totally agree with you. You make some really, really good points in terms of the way that Harvey Elliott plays the game. You see him pick up the ball from sort of deep areas, even in central position. At central position, he wants to get at back fours. He wants to get at you and take you wide. Or if he shows you one way, he'll go the other way. He's got phenomenal trickery and good ball retention as well, which I think is vital for players coming through in the Premier League. So I want to flick to a couple of comments. Big shout out to the guys over at 1892 Podcast. Thanks again for liking and subscribing, boys. And also credit to you guys on your piece that you've done recently with James Pearce. So tuned into that. That was absolutely fantastic. Big comment here as well. Elliott was the second highest assister in the Championship last season. To be honest, the AFCON this year, if we don't have any attacking signings, and Harvey Elliott is going to be vital. Yeah, you're right, mate. Spot on. Absolutely spot on, because the AFCON could be a real banana skin for Liverpool Football Club. If you look at some of our players, Mo Salah, Sadio Mane being prime examples of that. There is some rumours that the AFCON may be delayed or cancelled for this year due to the ongoing situation in terms of the pandemic as well. Some more comments in there from 1892 as well. In terms of Wilson, could be on a decent wage. Also, the likes of Ojo as well. Also leaving. Development might not be there, but decent contracts will tempt and then just go on loan. Do you know what? You make a really, really good point as well. Shea Ojo's been all over the shop, Reading, Fulham, everywhere. So it's time for him probably to move on from the club as well. And one thing we all do know is that Harry Wilson is a set-piece merchant. He really, really is. So big comments and really, really good contributions from 1892 podcast as well. Mr. Wright in the comments again, mate. Thank you. It's time for Harry Wilson to go. He is a low-end Premier League player, but high-end Championship. He lacks pace in the wide attacking positions. Do you know what's spot on? I feel if he had more pace, Liverpool will probably go, do you know what, this lad's got a little bit of something about him. He can deliver a ball. He's got a bit of pace. Can he beat a man on a byline? But unfortunately, he doesn't.
I think Gav was right. I think he's a B-Tech Shaqiri. I think Wilson's one of them players that does stuff outside the box, crosses the ball in from wide areas or shoots and cuts inside. Whereas, like you mentioned, we have our wing backs do that, and our front three, the wingers are inside forwards that get in the box, get on the end of and cut inside and want to score. So I agree, Wilson is a B-Tech Shaqiri that doesn't fit into our shape really. Yeah, totally. I think we touched on this on a pod recently where we made kind of the same. We drew to the same conclusion. Yeah, with Harry Wilson and the comparisons to Shaqiri. So it's interesting that Gav, not privy to that conversation, makes the same comparisons. You're spot on there as well. One other player that I just want to talk about in terms of, outgoings is... Sorry, my chain of thought's gone there. In terms of... pardon? Henderson or Awoniyi?
Henderson. So it was. It's gone in the. It's come out in the local papers and all over the media, splashed absolutely everywhere, that Jordan Henderson is in a contract standoff with Liverpool Football Club. It seems the absolute most farcical thing that could ever be printed on tabloid papers all over the internet, especially as he's the captain of the club as well. I mean, Gav, I'll let you take this one away. What are Liverpool Football Club doing? Number one, and is there any truth in this? Is it as much of a standoff as we're being led to believe, or is it just the fact that we've got a lad who's got 2 years left on his deal and he's looking to secure his future?
First of all, I haven't got a clue what's going on and what the club are doing. Nobody does. That's the truth, in my opinion. Nobody knows what the club, and indeed Jordan Henderson and his advisors are at. Jordan Henderson, this piece has come out in a couple of publications, okay? And one in particular, it came out in saying that Jordan Henderson's future at Liverpool is in doubt because he's in a contract dispute or talks have broken down over a new contract. The same publication, less than 24 hours beforehand, ran a story that said Jordan Henderson is set to sign a deal at Liverpool that will see him end his career at the club. All right?
Yeah.
Now, my opinion is, and people think when I say this stuff that I'm defending Jordan Henderson, this has nothing to do with Jordan Henderson. This is very, very, it's a very, open kind of opinion I have. You can insert any player's name in that has 2 years left on his deal, is what I'm trying to say to you. So, Virgil van Dijk, Firmino, Alisson, Becker, Salah, Mane, there's loads of them. There's about 12 of them that have 2 years left in their deal. I think about 5 or 6 won't see out them. They'll be gone. They're looking to move them on. But nobody knows what's happened here. The last a report came out to say, and the original report said that Jordan Henderson, after initial discussions with Liverpool, hasn't moved on and he could very well leave the club this summer. That may be true. But Jordan Henderson finished the season at Liverpool, probably had brief discussions with him with regards to a contract, and then went to play in the Euros and went on holiday. Now, most professional footballers you would speak to, well, I don't speak to a lot of them, but most of them that you would read about or read quotes from would say, when the football season's over and I have a major tournament going on, I don't want to know about anything else. I don't want to know about my contract situation or what players are coming in or what players are leaving, or, they really, really don't, and they just want to go and they just want to concentrate on playing for their country. He's now gone on holiday. There's been no progression in these discussions. Now, having said that, your agent does a lot of work for you. He goes off and he knows what you want and he tries to make it work. But at the end of the day, It could be something as simple as Liverpool are putting an offer down. The agent's going, we mightn't go for that. Let's leave it. We'll talk to Jordan in a few weeks. There's no rush anyway. That could be simply what happened. You know the way. And people going on, like I've seen people on social media going absolutely spare over this. Why are we selling them? Why are we? We're not selling them. Nobody said we're selling them. And if you actually read the articles back, what they say is that they understand that this is the case, and they believe that this is the case. So if you understand or you believe, tell us who you understand it from. Somebody's made you understand. Tell us who it is. And if someone's made you believe this, why can't you tell who it is? Even if you say to us, a source within the club has said, you're now putting some sort of name on it, but nothing's come out like that. It's literally people filling pages and trying to drum up something. Now, other people are saying Jordan Henderson is out of order. He's allowing his agent to go and do this. Nobody has said anything until Jordan Henderson comes out and says, "Yeah, there's an issue. There's an issue with my contract. I'm trying to sort it out," which he won't. But unless something comes out like that, something more concrete, I don't mean to be flippant over this, but I don't really take too much attention to it. Okay, because I feel that whoever's written these stories or others can turn around next week and go, Virgil van Dijk's on the verge of leaving Liverpool because his contract talks haven't progressed. Okay, or Mo Salah or Sadio. You can just copy and paste names in. That's all you can do, and you can run the exact same story for 6 of them. And it happens to be Jordan Henderson. Now they've been fed a line from somewhere, but it literally could have been, how's the contract stuff by Henderson? Talks a couple of weeks ago, nothing's progressed yet. That could be it. And then nothing's progressed. Oh, hold on a minute, there's something wrong here, And as much as Jordan Henderson loves Liverpool and loves being captain in the city and stuff like that, Jordan Henderson has to look after himself. Now, he could have offered him a deal and said, I don't know, if Jordan Henderson on 100 grand a week, for argument's sake. They said, we'll give you 120, okay? And we'll only extend it for 1 year because you'll be 33 at the end of your contract.
Yeah.
Jordan Henderson says, well, I'm okay with the 120, but I'd rather have an extension of a year plus an option of another, dependent on whatever. We don't know the intricacies. We don't know the intricacies of this. And I don't want Jordan Henderson to leave the club, but if it comes down to where he has to, this stuff happens. It absolutely happens. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to wait and see something a little bit more concrete from either the club, Henderson, his advisors, or another club coming in and making a bid for Jordan Henderson because they believe that he's available. So, look, I don't mean to be flippant over it. I don't mean to be preachy over it, but I'm just trying to tell you that I haven't read, I think it was 2 articles. I'm not going to name who wrote them because I don't usually do that, but I've read 2 articles and it was a lot of understanding and a lot of believing rather than this is what happened. I've seen one line saying, making out that Henderson and Liverpool have no problem with us writing this story because it's true. Well, tell us how it's true. Yeah. Tell us how it's true. How is it true? You're not giving me one quote. You're not even referencing somebody on his team or at the club. You're just not. So, regardless of whether it's Henderson or not, I'd literally put money on it that at some stage, Salah's name is going to be dropped in here, Van Dijk, Mane, and whoever else has 2 years left in the deal. Because for me, Henderson's deal is probably in the exact same stage as all them other lads. Okay, but the question was asked about Henderson, and it was the answer given. If you rang tomorrow about Van Dijk, you probably get the same answer, and we'll start this story all over again. Print the same words, but just remove Henderson and put Van Dijk in. So that's just the way I feel. It's a very long-winded way of saying it, but I just kind of get the feeling that we're trying to fill pages here. We're trying to fill pages and we're trying to make something out. If you're going to write a story about that, tell us who you got it from. I know you don't reveal your contacts, but tell us where you got it from. Did you get it from the club? Did you get it from his agency? Did they tell you to write this? And then we go from there. But nothing from what I have seen tells me that, not that there's no truth in it, because the contract has been discussed and hasn't progressed because of reason X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, you can't really tell me that his future is in doubt because he hasn't signed a contract because he's been off playing international football for a month and now he's had the gall to go on holiday. So it's one of those things, lads. I think we should just move on from it as a support base, and when something happens, it will happen, and we'll know about it. And right now, I think we're just reading words that don't really, for me, come across as very coherent.
Gav, you make some interesting points, and I totally agree with everything that you're saying. It does seem like tabloids are just trying to sell papers, and and internet, publishers are trying to sell clicks. And ultimately, can we imagine a world where Jordan Henderson is able to walk out of Liverpool Football Club after just winning the Premier League, Champions League, Club World Cup, Super Cup, and get into the finals of the European Championships in this summer, in the same summer that we lose a Gini Wijnaldum? For me personally, I've said it before, and I tweeted about it the other day. I feel Liverpool are setting foundations for the future in terms of what they're trying to do. I think that someone in the club has had the bright idea where it's 30-somethings, we're going to offer them X because they're 30-somethings. I don't think they want to have a situation on their hands where they have another Joe Cole, for example, who was at the club for a period of time and very rarely kicked a ball. After that, we had an Adam Lallana, was at the club for a period of time and very rarely kicked a ball. But these players were on vast sums of money in comparison to their contributions to the club. And I don't think the club want to be stuck in a position where they find themselves with some 30-somethings that aren't contributing in the way that we need to contribute. And it stops us from going ahead and signing, dare I say it, a Jude Bellingham, someone who could potentially fill that role for the next decade at Liverpool Football Club. SS, I'll just flick to you because I know that you and I, again, had a very brief conversation on this. I know you've got some strong thoughts in regards to the current contract situations at Liverpool Football Club with players such as James Milner, Thiago, Gini Wijnaldum leaving the club, and now the rumours about Henderson. So I'm going to give you the floor, mate, and pause for breath.
No, I mean, I think Gav wrapped up the rumor of Henderson going on perfectly. So there's nothing more to add on that. But in terms of the contract situation within the club, I think we need to start being consistent and decide what we're going to do going forward. So Gav mentioned there's about 12 names up for renewal in the summer of 2023, and you're looking at the squad, and you've got Mo Salah. He'll be 31 at the end of his current contract. Mane the same. Fabinho will be 29. Van Dijk will be 32. Firmino will be 31. Henderson will be 33. You've got Chamberlain and Keita both in there as well, who will be 28 and 29. So, we don't want to end up, I agree, with a team of 30-plus-year-olds on 140 grand a week up until they're 34, 35, because that's just not sustainable. I look at James Milner. He's on about 145k a week, I think, at the age of 36. And realistically, is he going to contribute what you would expect a player of that wage to be on, to contribute to a team? For me, he's not going to this season, purely because of the fact that we've got three midfielders ahead of him. And you'd expect Keita, Ox and Jones' energy to put them in there over Milner more often than not. Milner can play the odd big game and come on in the 60th minute to hold a lead in an important match, but can he play 90 minutes twice a week? I don't think so. So as a club, we need to decide on a model, because I think Arsenal used to have something very similar. Anytime it was over 30, it was a one-year deal, and that's it. If you don't like it, you can leave. So that's the extreme. I look at Gini Wijnaldum, and I don't want to labour the point because my thoughts on Gini. But he's 30, and to let him walk out the door as a 30-year-old, in my opinion, still in his prime, is unforgivable. So if we give him, we're on about Henderson expiring at the age of 33 and giving him a new deal, yet someone that's 30, we're not even giving them a 3-year deal to get to 33. So I think it's circumstantial to a point. Different players will age better than others. James Milner is a perfect example of that. I think Gini Wijnaldum would still play like a 29-year-old at the age of 33, 34. That's why he got the move he got to PSG, because they know that and they give him a big bumper contract. But yeah, we can't afford to be in the position, as I've mentioned, of an AC Milan of 2007 when you've got a fantastic 11 that all retire at the same time, because a lot of these players will be 31 to 33, and we can't afford to replace an 11 in one summer, probably 2 summers. With our current model, we're adding 1, 2 or 3 players a summer, maximum. So do we start to cash in on a Firmino and think, well, you're going to be 30 soon. You're not really putting up trees. Let's go and get a 23-year-old striker to play instead. So I think we need to decide what we're doing. We need to stop letting people walk out the door for free. We saw Gerrard leave at a very similar age to what Henderson could potentially be a free agent on as well, which again, I think he had more to give with a position change as well. So, and then we bring a Thiago in at age 29 and give him 200 grand a week. And Gini's thinking, hang on, I've been here for 5 years. I'm on 70k a week since day one. surely I'm almost owed back payments for being paid so modestly for the contribution I've been making to the team. So we need to decide what we're doing. We need to make it a little bit more obvious, a little bit more contractual, and say, right, when do you get to this age? It, like Gav said, it's a 2-year deal with an option of a third. I like the option because it gives you the flexibility to make that call based on contribution. You know, Henderson has struggled with injuries. Let's not pretend he hasn't over the last 2 years. Do we want to commit to a Henderson keeping him on contract till 35? You know, his last 2 seasons with the club, he might play 10 games. We could possibly happen. So we need to be smart, but letting people like Gini walk out the door in his prime at 30 for me is crazy. But for me, Henderson at 33, personally, I think that's enough. I don't think we're going to get much out of a 34-year-old Henderson, to be honest, with the wage that he would expect. So I don't think we're going to cash in on a Henderson. I think he's one of the players that would play till the end of his contract. But people like Firmino, Mane, Salah, do we want all of them to hit 31, 32, 33 at the same time, all leave on a free, and suddenly we've got hope that an Elliott has come through and we've got to go and spend 100 million? I'm not sure. So, yeah, I want us to get a bit more of an idea, more of an identity as to how we move forward as a club.
It's a good point to start to close things, really, to be honest, in regards to the contract situations with those kind of players. We talk about, you know, Firmino, Mane, Salah, Henderson, all coming to the end of their deals roughly around about the same time and all being a 30-something. Does this start to usher in the new wave of Liverpool kind of 2.0? Does this start to close the Klopp era with these players all heading into the 30-something? And would we see a mass sale or a mass exodus at that point when Jurgen Klopp has said that he intends to depart the club and go on a sabbatical? And does this kind of make way for what is shaping up to be, you know, a new era under maybe a Steven Gerrard? There has been links in recent weeks with players such as Youri Tielemans. There has been tentative links with players such as Jude Bellingham, because there is an interest there from Liverpool Football Club in Jude Bellingham. Could those type of players and those type of signings be in through the door at that point, which allow Liverpool to move forward? And KT makes a fantastic comment here in the chat as well. What do you guys do in 2023? Hendo sees out his contract. Assuming Hendo sees out his contract, do you give him an extension or let him go? And I just want to expand on this comment a little bit because, again, I think it's a great way to close. So I'm going to give you guys sort of free reign. 2023 is here. Our illustrious leader, Jurgen Klopp, says, do you know what, boys? It's been great. It's now time for me to go off on my travels on a sabbatical and take a break. Steven Gerrard walks in through the door and says, I'm here, saviour of Liverpool. It's now time for me to manage this club. Do you feel that Jordan Henderson being around at that point, he'd want to catch the tail end of that and be kind of back with Steven Gerrard, being his skipper tentatively and moving and trying to usher in the new era of Liverpool? Because my personal thoughts is, yes, I would want to see Jordan Henderson at the club to bring in the next manager, because you need that stability. You need a player which has been around the club for a sustained period of time, knows what the club means, and any new youth players or any younger players that come into the club almost show them the ropes in the same way that a James Milner has done. Gav, I'll come to you first.
I don't think we're going to get to 2023 wondering what Jordan Henderson's future is at Liverpool. I genuinely don't. I think contract talks definitely have happened. And I think you'll either see Jordan Henderson not sign a deal and you'll know from a good way out that he's running down his contract, or you will see something this summer where Jordan Henderson has agreed a 2-year extension to his deal, you know, bringing him to 34. And, you know, I think that's the way it'll work. I don't think we'll get to 2023 like Wijnaldum, where we're going, he's out of contract next week, you know. And I don't see that happening for Jordan Henderson. And I don't think Jordan Henderson would like that to happen. And I think what SS says there is true. You don't want to see that happening to a couple of players, and you don't want to be getting that. You don't want to be repeating that. But on the Gino and Wijnaldum thing, I think when you look the way that worked out, I think the club were looking for him to stay. You know, if they weren't, they would have said, look, forget about it in January. Go and find a fucking club and now to do what you like. And they didn't. You know, the sort of way. Gino Wijnaldum signed a deal in 2016 for 5 years. He's the only player, I think, at the club that's never renewed a deal. You know, he signed on 70 grand a week, and that's what he took. Why his agent wasn't knocking around after 18, 19 or 19, 20 going, listen, where's my deal? You know, I want 140 grand a week. I think he would have got it. But approaching the very end of the deal, you have to remember, the player's approaching the end of the deal and he can get a bumper payout. But he's also approaching the end of the deal and no one might want him. You know, so the club had that bit of power as well. I believe in the Wijnaldum situation. I think Klopp most definitely wanted him to stay. I think Liverpool offered him a deal in January, and I think they may have went back in March or April with another deal, and he refused it. And that's Gino Wijnaldum's position. It's prerogative, you know. And I think people saying, you know, Klopp has no say and stuff like that, I think they're overreading that. I would say Klopp has gone and I really want him to stay in the club, and yeah, we've no problem with him staying, but we're offering him 120 for 3 years, and he won't take it. If he won't take it, we're not doing any more than that. And Klopp went, well, look, I can't really argue with that. Okay, let's just see. Let's hope he signs, and whatever will be, because we haven't really seen it. You know, any talk around the contract situation on Wijnaldum from Klopp, just to salute to him and best of luck, and he's been a great servant. And you haven't seen much from Wijnaldum, so I don't know. But with regards to Henderson and the others, part of me would just say, look, extend all of them and get the success out of them. And if they all walk away in 3 or 4 years' time, you've made your money on all of them. There's not a player there that you haven't made your money on. Yeah, I know you include Van Dijk and Alisson in that. The money the club have made off the success they've had with them in the team, I think dwarfs what we've paid them, in my opinion. And not only that, the exposure and the knock-on effects, you know, the way we get more sponsorship, we get more, we basically get more money for every time we win a game at this stage. But I think there is a point in looking at it and going, there's a lot of players at the same age with 2 years left on the deal, and you kind of have it in your head, yeah, we could get to the point in 2 years' time where there's 7 of them walking at the door going, good luck, lads, I'm off the PSG or Real or whatever on a free, and we're getting nothing for it. You can absolutely see that, but the forward planning thing is very interesting. You know, I think at centre-half, I think Konate is definitely a forward planning move. I think the next striker we sign will definitely be a forward planning move. And the next midfielder we sign will definitely be a forward planning move, i.e. if you're to do with Tielemans, or God forbid you've done a Haaland, or you've done somebody, you know what I'm thinking. And I've said it loads of times, with regards to a striker, I want somebody that can play through the middle, okay, or play all across the front, but can actually go and play now. And when it comes time for Firmino to leave, whether that be next season or in 2 years' time, this guy is already there and he's banging in goals, and you go, he's there. You know, literally Firmino was his backup, so Firmino going is not an issue. So there's definitely going to be forward planning in the club. That they're not silly people. But I get the point where people can kind of look and go, yeah, there's a lot of them, and it's in 2 years' time. In 2 years' time, it'll be around in no time, absolutely no time. Before we realise it, us three could be sitting here going, they're all out of contract next week, lads. But I don't think that'll happen. I think Salah, I think Salah, Van Dijk, Alisson will definitely be sorted. I think Henderson will be sorted. Firmino, I'm not too sure. Ox and Keita, maybe trying to protect the value. I'm not too sure on that, but I think most of them will get sorted, or we will get a big indication of what's going to happen with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make some great points in there as well. And just quickly before I jog it on to SS to close us out, KT with a great comment in there. I think if we replace Ginny with a young, high potential centre midfielder, it was the correct decision to let him go. Do you know what? We've laboured the Ginny point so much now, and I think KT here, you make a really, really great comment. Seeing, you know, another midfielder walking through the door with high potential, arguably a Youri Tielemans is the one that we all think, you know, and would all love to have. And, you know, shout out to any Leicester fans that are watching. As I've said on many occasions, you always sell one big player every single season. So is it going to be Tielemans this year, or is it going to be a Maddison this year? Because Arsenal are interested in Maddison, and there's no secret that Liverpool are interested in Tielemans. Which one of those guys has the higher value? I personally think it's Youri Tielemans, and as we said, you always sell one big player every single year to finance your move. So watch this space. SS, talk to me, bro. We're going to give you the final say on this before we get into the thank yous and closing off. What's your 2023? What are we looking like? Talk to me.
Yeah, so, I mean, Klopp has a contract until 2024, so he does not want to leave us in the lurch. I mean, you know, you look at Ferguson leaving United what got every last drop out of that older group of players, won the league title, left the club, a hero. In comes David Moyes. There you go, mate. You got to rebuild a squad with Phil Jones as your best centre back. And it was destined to fail, wasn't it? It was never going to happen. So, I look at these deals and like Gav says, a lot of them expire in 2023, which is a year before Steven Gerrard could potentially come in. So I agree. I think you give them all a contract, really, within reason. I think strikers and forward players, so I'd include Mane and Salah in that, have the shortest kind of expiry date. So defenders like Van Dijk could play at his level for 34, 35. Look at Chiellini. He's still winning the European Championship as the main defender. We've seen it with midfielders, Gerrard, Henderson, Lampard. They can become a little bit more reserved in midfield, that they can play on a little bit longer. But the likes of Mane, the likes of Salah, unless they reinvent themselves like a Cristiano Ronaldo, a fox in the box, powerful kind of player, which you have alluded to in the past, James, they rely on their pace. And the way we play is with speedy wingers. And as soon as they lose that yard of pace, once they hit 32, 33, they're not really going to be the same player anymore. We see wingers really fall away sometimes in their late 20s. We mentioned the likes of Ryan Babel, Theo Walcott, absolutely electric pace, well beaters at 20 to 25. And as soon as they click onto the late 20s, they slowly disappear. But Mane and Salah are definitely a level above that. So I do see this group of players that are coming up to that 2-year getting a new deal, the likes of Firmino, the likes of Mane and the likes of Salah. And then again, I think it's a case of performance levels. We choose probably half of them to keep until the end of that deal. So the likes of Salah, potentially, the likes of possibly Henderson and Alisson and Van Dijk would probably play until they leave for free. I don't think we would try and cash them in. And on the other hand, maybe when we give a new contract to a Sadio Mane, taking him to say 34, do we sell him at 32, 33? Do we sell a Firmino at 31, 32? Get a little bit back in, because the comment from KT is spot on. You have to evolve. You have to become a Liverpool 2.0. You can't do it all at once. So once you build a successful 11, as soon as one of those players hit 32, 33, you get them out the door and you reinvest in that position with a new player. And if you've got a backup player in your squad already that's ready to step up, then fine. You can bring in someone to challenge them for that position. But I agree with Gav. I think already we've seen Firmino decrease in terms of his performance levels over the last 2 years. And I think this front three has another year in them at least. I think the midfielder replacement for Gini Wijnaldum is the number one priority this season, because there's a 51 game a season Gini Wijnaldum shaped hole in that midfield that's not going to be filled by Thiago, Henderson, Keita, Ox. It's just not going to happen. So maybe in a year's time we bring in a striker. Again, Haaland and Mbappe are the dream factory, aren't they? But I mentioned last night on transfer in Lautaro Martinez, someone like that. So we need to bring in a striker below the age of 25 next summer to make Firmino the backup. We need to bring in Tielemans this summer, because Henderson and Thiago aren't going to play every single week. And we know we can't rely on Ox. We know we can't rely on Keita. We don't want Curtis Jones to have to fulfill 35, 40 games yet. I love Curtis Jones. I want to see him play more than he did last season, especially in the back end of the season, because I think he's an absolute talent. Him and Elliott are the future, Trent. But yeah, I think it's a case of they will sign new deals. They're all going to be linked if the contracts drag out. Like Gav said, insert name here. But the likes of the ones that are in the 29-30 area are going to get new deals. There might be one that doesn't, like a Genie. Mane might decide, no, it's not for me. I'm going to see it out and leave on a free. It could happen. But we need to be careful that, like Gav said, we don't lose 7 first-team players on a free transfer in one summer. It's unlikely. But I think they've all got one more deal left, and we then choose which ones we like to see out the deal. Van Dijk, the Salah, the icons of Liverpool. And we need to really cash in on probably the other half.
I totally agree, and that's a really, really good place to close. I mean, Liverpool seem like they're starting to forward plan and succession plan in this window, and it's looking like it's shaping up to be a memorable window. Obviously, with the addition of a Konate and potentially looking at a player such as Youri Tielemans or a player that can actually fit into that mould and leave a legacy with Liverpool for an extended period of time. Do we think Jordan Henderson will sign another deal? Yes, I think Jordan Henderson will sign another deal. I don't think that's going to be in doubt. and ultimately, you know, take him through to his mid-30s at the club. Just before we close, I want to say thank you to Gav for coming on, my man. Gav, please tell the listeners and the viewers where they can find you if they don't know already.
LFC Daytrippers on everything. Go to Google, go to Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you listen to podcasts, type in LFC Daytrippers. On YouTube, LFC Day. It's just LFC Daytrippers. No matter what, I could list it all off, but if you want to find their content, whether that's audio or visual, LFC Daytrippers. And the lads who've had me on tonight will be on with us from the start of next season. I think Friday. And we kick it all off. So Friday is the first. They're going to be the post-match lads for us next season. So they're going to be doing 30, 40 minutes after every game. So make sure you come and subscribe to our channel, and also make sure you subscribe to this channel, because then when you see them doing what they do here, you'll also get to see them doing what they're going to do on the LFC Daytrippers. So yeah, so listen, this isn't about the LFC Daytrippers tonight. This is about you. So make sure you go and subscribe. And as I said, you're going to see them. You're going to see them on Fridays, on this Friday, and then after every game this season, they've signed a massive contract, and it's way too big. It's way too many games. I'd say they're sitting there going, if Liverpool make all the cup finals, we're going to be working forever. But no, listen. In fairness, the three of us have sat down. We've discussed it. We've planned it. We've visually planned it. We've audio planned it in an audio way, and the content and stuff. Everyone's happy with what they're going to do, and it's going to be fun, it's going to be reactive, and it's going to be interactive for people watching. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. Starting with us on Friday. But the main thing tonight is this YouTube channel that you've started, and I'm sure it'll be a massive success.
Gav, I really, really appreciate it. I mean, SNS and I have had a couple of conversations. Our intention is to come over to LFC Daytrippers on those match reviews and break the internet. So we're looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to getting started. SS, tell the people what we've got coming up for the rest of the week, what's left, and obviously where they can find us.
Yeah, so it's starting with a bang, hopefully, if we can get everything done. So we still need to do the away kit review. We were really successful on doing the new home kit. I'm doing the retro of last season's, but yeah, we've got the away kit review coming up, which is a throwback to I think 96, 97 or 95, 96. Yeah. So I love a beautiful kit, so I can't wait to get into that. Me and James have got the match version, and once you go match, you never go back, right?
That's it, mate. That's it.
Thursday, we've got the next episode of our tier list series. So we started that over on Red Sky, which became Football Focused. Obviously, we did that on our older platform for a while. So we've got Centre Mids Part 2 coming up soon. So there's 12 centre midfielders from kind of the late 70s to present day, which we obviously rank on the tier list. Icon, cult hero, underrated, that kind of thing, had his moments, in the bin, dodgy, etc., etc. So it's great to get interactive with that, because people can put comments in there, and if they disagree, we might move them up at a stage, etc., like that. And obviously Friday we've got the first Red Sea full-time post-match show on Daytrippers, which I'm absolutely buzzing for. So that's all coming up, all to look forward to, and we're almost hitting that magic 5K on the Twitter now. So if you're watching on Twitter, or even if you're not, head over to @the_Red_Sea_pod on Twitter and follow us. And James is also running the Instagram at the same name, the Red Sea Pod. So go and follow us on Instagram as well. But yeah, this is the launch of our very own YouTube channel. It's really, really exciting. We've got some great guests coming up as well. So we've had some good ones in the past, but we've not even started. We've got some serious guests coming up, coming forward. So lots to look out for. Please like the video. Please subscribe. It will really help us grow as a channel. And yeah, it's the future is red and bright, really.
Definitely. And with that, thank you for joining us on the Red Sea podcast tonight. And we look forward to catching up with you guys really, really soon.